Hello and welcome everyone to this session where we're going to be talking about how to protect the enterprise from home. And the concept is with everybody working from home, how do we make sure that we maintain a high level of security during this shelter in place? My name is Peter Newton. I'm a Senior Director of Products, Marketing, and Solutions at Fortinet. And I do have responsibility
Sorry, Peter. There was an issue there. I'm just going to count you in again, and if you could restart. My apologies for that.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, live.
Hello and welcome to this session. Today we're going to be talking about protecting the enterprise from home, and or as another way to say it is, now that everybody's working from home, how do we maintain high security for enterprises? My name is Peter Newton. I'm a Senior Director of Product Marketing and Solutions at Fortinet, and I'll be talking about the various solutions that we recommend as people are working at scale from home. So for an agenda, what I'll be covering during this session, I'll first be talking about kind of what we call phase one, remote work phase one, where the initial concern is how do you actually just enable people to work? How do you get that connectivity in a secure fashion? And so we'll be talking about the types of teleworkers and what types of things you need in the main office in order to enable people to continue working. Then in the second half of the presentation will be what we call remote work phase two, additional security concerns. And this is what we're talking about is now that you have so many people working from home, what are the other things that as security professionals we should be looking at, thinking about, and paying attention to with remote working? So with that, let's get going. Now, right now, we are dealing with remote working at scale due to a pandemic, but this is actually, something that's happened many times over the years for businesses of all sizes, where they face a situation where they cannot bring their employees into the office where they normally work. So there are a variety of reasons that this might occur, and that's why continuity planning and business planning. It's a good idea to have a plan of what do you do when you can't work from the office. At Fortinet, our philosophy around cybersecurity is best illustrated by our security fabric. For those of you who are not familiar with Fortinet, we are the #1 independent cybersecurity company in the world. And we believe that the best way to deliver cybersecurity in today's day and age is through a platform. And so when we call it the Fortinet Security Fabric is the platform that we enable. With this platform, it deals with the complexity of cybersecurity in today's day and age by delivering broad visibility across the diverse attack surface. There's attacks are coming in so many different ways. There's no single product that can protect you and see that type of those attacks. And that's why you need a collection of products. And that's the first step that a security fabric delivers is the visibility across many different threat vectors. But then importantly, you want those products to share that intelligence, to share that visibility, so that when something is detected by one part of the fabric, the rest of the fabric can benefit from that information. And this really reduces the workload on stressed NOC and SOC teams. We all know that there's a shortage of skilled personnel, and there's all kinds of threats going on. So the only way to really effectively respond is with an integrated solution that's sharing that information in an automated fashion, so that as the platform notices something, it can automatically take steps and reduce the workload on those security teams. Now, one important thing about this security fabric, you can see there are several types of solutions involved. Up at the 1 o'clock position, we do have that open ecosystem because importantly, while this is the Fortinet Security Fabric, this is not a collection or just a collection of Fortinet products. We actually have more than 350 vendors who integrate with the fabric to enhance the broad visibility, the integration and automation that the security fabric delivers. One, we recognize that customers are not going to deploy just Fortinet products into their company. And the point of a platform is to provide security with whatever you have in place. So it's not just about doing it with Fortinet, it's about doing it with good security. And the second thing is there's still products that, even though Fortinet has quite a wide portfolio of products, there are things that we don't do, and we do need to work with other partners to deliver that part of the security solution to the customer. So open ecosystem, very important part of our security fabric. But with that, let's move on to where this fits together with remote working. And to start off, let's kind of just what is teleworking, what is remote working? And the concept, though I think most of you are familiar with it, just to level set, is normally people are working in the office and they're accessing their information using the corporate LAN to get to the data center, to get to the internet, to get to cloud-based applications. Now, when we move to a teleworker situation where we're dealing with now, we're talking about when those workers who are normally in the office are all now accessing the internet remotely, accessing their local area network remotely, accessing those SaaS connections, and doing that from non-headquarter locations. Now, this is not something, the concept of accessing your headquarters from a remote location is not new. On any given day, for any corporation, 5 to 10% of the people are going to be remote, whether it's for travel, whether it's because they're just in a independent location that doesn't have an office nearby. So the basics or the overall idea of this isn't new. The difference here is what do you do when it's everybody in the office, when the scale goes from 10% up to 90, 95, 98, 99% of the people who are not in the office. So talk a little bit about that. When we think about the teleworker and how we want to protect, provision, and enable this type of work, there are really 3 types of users that you want to be thinking about. Now, you'll note that these percentages add up to more than 100%, and the reason being is your general roaming profile is suitable for everybody in the company, even your power users and super users, because this applies when someone is away from their installed infrastructure. For most people, that's 90%. That's the installed infrastructure is what's in the main office. But for power users and super users, we'll talk a little bit about the installed infrastructure that you can put in place at their remote locations to assist them in the performance of their duties. So let's talk about each of these 3 groups. So your general teleworker, this is going to be your kind of standard employee. They're going to need access to all their normal applications so that they can do their job. And since they're going to be connecting to those applications from their home, they're going to need the ability to go and traverse an unsecure network, also known as the internet. The way to do that is most commonly a VPN tunnel or virtual private network that creates an encrypted connection between their device and the head office or potentially into a cloud application. So to do that, you need a VPN. We have at Fortinet our FortiClient VPN that supports both SSL and IPsec. Either one of those is fine. We find that IPsec gets more throughput, and so if that works for you, we do recommend IPsec. However, we do know that from experience that some ISPs have put in place mechanisms that block IPsec tunnels, and in those cases, an SSL tunnel is another viable option that will certainly work because it uses more the web internet protocols and ports to get through the ISPs. So step number one, get connectivity back to the head office so that these employees can get access to their data, to their applications, and that's available on FortiClient. And whether that we're talking about laptops or mobile devices, you can do that on both. Now, from the corporate standpoint, from the head office standpoint, you have all kinds of these tunnels coming in from workers at home. What do you need to do to protect yourself? Well, first and foremost, you want to make sure that these people are indeed the people that who they claim to be, i.e. not passwords and usernames that have been hacked or stolen. As you know, usernames and passwords are frequently stolen for all the customer breaches, all the database breaches that you've seen over the years. And you also have heard, seen, I'm sure, in many of your reports how end users tend to use weak passwords, and those are easily broken, easily hacked. And so in looking at how do you maintain good security, how do you maintain good control of the identity of people coming onto your network, you need a second factor of authentication or two-factor authentication. For that, we have FortiToken, and this enables that teleworker to have both something they know, a username and password, and something they have, that token, to prove to the company that they are indeed an employee of the company and should be getting access to the network via this VPN tunnel. So one thing to note, these are all software capable things. You don't need to have a hardware for either of these. FortiClient loads onto your phone or laptop, and FortiToken is most popularly consumed as a mobile phone application. So that thing you have is not necessarily a key fob. That thing you have could be your phone. So with that, let's move on to the next group of user, the power user. So the power user is someone who would benefit from a more persistent connection. That general user, he's going to need to be signing into that VPN tunnel once a day or a couple times a day to keep that up. Those do time out as they should. And so you might have users who, one, need a more persistent connection, and two, they might need to have multiple devices that are connecting in. One solution for that type of user is to deploy an access point, a corporate managed access point out to their location. Now this would sit behind their personal router, sit within their network, but it would be the one, that access point would be creating that secure tunnel back to the corporate office. So instead of using a FortiClient to create that VPN tunnel, the access point is actually creating that VPN tunnel. Now this access point will be managed by the FortiGate at that office. So it's going to be getting its policies pushed out there, and it can, because it's being managed by the FortiGate can actually apply the same protections and traffic inspections as it would for any WAN link to the wireless traffic. Now that's just a standard feature of our access points when they're managed by our FortiGates. The FortiGate can do that. And here, with the additional capability of that VPN tunnel between the AP and FortiGate, you have a securely deployed remote access point that's enabling a super user a power user to connect to that and get access to what they need to do. One important feature here is that even though someone's coming in and connecting to that access point, they still need to verify who they are from an identity standpoint. And that's why you see FortiToken is still here. These users are still going to be logging on to applications using usernames and passwords. You do want that token there for that second factor authentication. A nice side benefit of deploying an access point, a corporate company managed access point at their employee's location, is they can actually use the same SSIDs that they would in the office. That access point can be managed just like an internally deployed access point would be managed, which makes it really simple and a great user experience for that user. So now that we've talked about the power user, let's go to our super user. Now, the super user is someone who you want the highest level of protection for. This is going to be a small subset of your employees. This might just be your executives, might be some of your network admins. These are people that have access to highly sensitive information, whether it's company information that needs to be kept secure, or whether it's having control of the networking and remote access. So for these people, you want to put the highest level of protection in, and that's going to be putting a firewall at their location. That firewall will then be able to deploy that secure VPN tunnel back to the head office, but it can also deploy traffic shaping, even SD-WAN capabilities. We've seen examples where companies have, when they deploy this, they've leveraged, in addition to the normal cable and DSL connections that a home would have for their broadband internet, they also use LTE connections, have a second link to that access to that FortiGate to enable application load balancing across multiple links. And that can not only, of course, increase the bandwidth available to this location, but importantly, it improves the user experience on their access to applications in the cloud and to the home, and to the home office, I should say. The FortiGate is able to deploy those SD-WAN capabilities to keep that user experience high. Importantly, as you know, because it's not just company employees that are working from home, there's also could be kids, children, I should say, doing remote learning in the house on that home network. There could be spouses working in that home network. If you want this super user to have the best experience for their applications, the firewall at the edge of that network can manage all the bandwidth of everyone and giving priority to this person, this super user. Now, one benefit of having a FortiGate deployed is effectively makes that home office a branch location. And with it being a branch location, you can then put other hardware behind it and keep it protected. Hardware such as phones, even access points. And then you can use, with the phone, for example, you can do a hardware desktop phone, or you could do a soft client on a laptop, but you could leverage the same 4-digit dialing that you would when that person is in the office. That can be available to them at their home, even though they're not in the office. And you'll see FortiToken is on this slide again, because even though these people are elevated privileged folks, and maybe especially because these are elevated privileged folks, you really want to make sure that these are the people who are logging into your network, and it's not someone who has stolen their credentials or hacked them. So you say, okay, now we've got the 3 types of users, and we know what they need out of their location. Oh, by the way, I should say that the firewalls and access point, those are hardware that would go out. We actually have zero touch provisioning capabilities. So you don't need to roll a truck. You don't need to visit these folks' homes in order to get this equipment up and running. You can actually mail the gear to them, and that gear, when connected to the internet, will call home to get their configurations. And so that all the security can be managed remotely, and all those configurations can be pushed to those access points and firewalls once they're connected to the internet. But you might say, well, how are we doing that? What type of equipment do we need in the office in order to enable these solutions? So let's take a look at that. So if we look on the other side of the internet, so to speak, at that head office on the left-hand side, you'll see that there is a firewall there. That's going to be the device, in Fortinet's case, that's going to be terminating all those VPN tunnels that are coming in, whether they're SSL or IPsec. Below that, you'll see I have a FortiClient EMS. That's our endpoint management system. That is what's maintaining all the configurations for those FortiClients for the general users that are out there. That'll be the easiest way to do mass configuration to keep control of how those are deployed and what's going on there. For all those FortiTokens that everybody has, for that two-factor authentication, you'll have FortiAuthenticator in there to do that authentication process. And then you'll be using the standard management tools that you would when people are in the office. In fact, FortiAuthenticator, FortiGates, FortiClient EMS, these are all tools that you would benefit from when people are working in the office, because you still need endpoint protection when you're in the office. You still need authentication when people are in the office. So you're just leveraging the same management tools that you would use when people are working in the office, when people are working from home. So that kind of the net of this is you don't need anything new. You should have these as a part of your security solution anyway. You're just now leveraging it as people are working remotely. Now, one question you might have is, well, yes, while it is normal to authenticate folks in the office and it's normal to manage endpoint protection solutions, what's not normal is the number of VPN tunnels that are coming in. That is something different. As we talked about earlier, normally 10% of the people would be connecting remotely. Now we're talking about maybe 98, 99% of the people connecting remotely. Do those FortiGates have the horsepower to handle that? And the answer is yes. If you look at our current portfolio of products, if you're familiar with FortiGates, you know that that letter at the end indicates what generation of product it is. Right now, we're currently shipping a mixture of E models and F models as we transition to our latest hardware ASICs. The power built into these ASICs, because these are custom-built security processors, they have hardware assists to do the VPN tunnels. And so the scale and capacity that they support is more than enough for an office. So another way to think of that is you've bought the firewall based on the number of people who are going to be working in that office, on the traffic that they're going to be generating that needs to be protected, and for all the next generation firewall capabilities that you want. For that size firewall, when the folks in that office need to work remotely, that firewall will have an excess number of VPN tunnels necessary to support those users working remotely. You don't need to go buy a new firewall. You don't need to go buy an SSL or IPsec VPN concentrator. The firewall itself has all the capacity you need. I do list on that third column the number of managed APs. That's what you'd be using for that power user who'd be having an AP deployed out at their location. And you can see that even there, the number of tunnels far exceeds the need for, or should exceed the need for the number of folks who need to have an access point deployed at their location. So pulling it all together, what this would look like is for the general user, they have their software elements deployed out at their location, tying back to the FortiGate with that FortiClient managed by the FortiClient EMS system. For the power user, you get that AP that's connecting back to the FortiGate, being managed by the FortiGate and getting its protection from that FortiGate, and that's giving them the protection they need. And then the super user is a FortiGate to FortiGate connection over the internet, giving them effectively a small branch at their home. So when we think about the connectivity portion of teleworking, the solutions that you have in place, if you're a Fortinet customer, can just be leveraged to support all those remote workers. So you don't need to buy special gear, additional gear. You can largely use what you have in place. If you do need additional VPN clients because those general users, there's people who maybe didn't travel before, that is free for download. You don't need to buy anything new. If you go to our website, I'll have a link at the end of the presentation, but you can download that VPN client for free, and it'll run on Mac and PCs. So you don't need to purchase anything new here. And you should have enough tokens for everyone anyway. because you should be doing two-factor authentication even when people are working in the office. So now that we've talked about the connectivity side of just making sure that people can connect back to the office, they can connect to their applications, they can connect to the data, that will get them up and running, and they can do so remotely. That's kind of dealing with that, how do you connect over the internet? Now let's think about what are the other security concerns that you should be thinking about when you have so many people who are working from home. And there are definitely challenges from working from home that people who are not used to it might not be ready for. The first one is that everybody now has a new endpoint, and the help desk is no longer down the hallway. So that whether they have corporate issued laptops or they're now using their own laptops or own desktops, they might be a little more challenged in how they're able to protect that device now that they are remotely. So you do want to take a look at how are these devices getting protected, and what can you do to improve the protection, make sure you have strong protection for these devices, make sure they're patched, make sure you don't have potentially unwanted applications running on them. Another issue that you might be thinking about is, well, we have BYOD policies in the office. We want to make sure that, people aren't bringing unsecured devices into the corporate offices. What do we do to enforce that now that people are accessing the corporate offices over VPN? And this is a bigger issue now because with some workers who are getting pushed to work from home, they might be using devices that are unsecured. They might be an old laptop that they used when they were in school. It might be a kid's tablet. If they need connectivity to the office and the company hasn't issued them a device, they might be forced to use a unmanaged device that might require a different policy of network access just for security reasons. And finally, with increased access to cloud applications, with people doing split tunneling to get to their applications, you might need different or improved visibility into what's happening with your cloud applications. So let's dig into each of these and the solutions that you might want to consider as you want to deploy better security around these areas. So with endpoint protection, endpoints are a necessary evil when it comes to IT. They're a pain in the neck for the IT group, and they're why primarily there's help desks in every organization. They do require a lot of effort to keep patched, to keep up to date, and they are frequently the first highest targeted asset when hackers are coming in. But as I say, laptops, endpoints are a necessary evil for an organization to function and be to work in this digital age. Sorry there, I need to take a drink of water. So then the question is, what do you do? How do you stop the breaches? How do you manage all the alerts that are coming in? How do you deal with potentially false positives that a lot of the endpoint solutions seem to create? And how do you do that when we have a skilled shortage of workers in our SOC? And that's where I'd like to introduce you to FortiEDR, which is our endpoint protection agent. It complements FortiClient that I talked about in the connectivity phase 1 portion of this presentation, where that FortiClient is delivering the VPN connection back to the office. FortiEDR is about endpoint detection and response for protection. And it's an enterprise class product. It's for companies that have a bit more sophisticated capabilities. And it not only does prevention, we're looking at what's out there and providing patching capabilities, and protecting those machines from infection. But most importantly is the response capability, that post-infection actions that the FortiEDR can take once something goes bump in the night. The ability to detect when an endpoint is under attack, the ability to stop the kill chain, to stop the attack in place, and to even roll back ransomware or data tampering, and then to be able to investigate and share that information with the rest of the security fabric, thereby strengthening the entire organization's security standpoint, and to clean up. And importantly, this can all happen automatically. It can all happen in using playbooks that make it easy for security operations to roll this out and provide this protection to users, even when they're remote, when they don't have the help desk nearby, when they don't have to ship their laptop back to an office somewhere. This will actually happen while they're at their home, keeping them safe and protected. How does this compare to traditional EDR solutions? You might be familiar, you might have one deployed now. Well, if you think about what needs to happen with the security process, there's a lot of things going on. You start off, you need to be watching all the time. Then you need to detect an incident, detect that something's happened. And then you need to investigate what really is happening, because as you know, endpoints are complex. There's a lot of things that happen that are normal. But just because something happens doesn't mean it's an attack. So you need to enrich that initial trigger with validating information to say, okay, yes, this is an attack. And if it is an attack, to then go ahead and block that and look around and remediate. So with first generation EDR solutions, that could take a long time to get through that initial detect and enrich capability. And with a lot of these steps being manual, it could take even longer, especially when you have to wait for human intervention. The great benefit of FortiEDR is a lot of this is happening out of the box in an automated fashion. So all this detection, enrichment, validation is happening almost instantaneously once something happens. And then the remediation part can kick off automatically, depending on how you want. It's an automatable process. You don't have to do it automated, and you can create the playbook in a way that matches your policies so that you can have human intervention at certain points if that's what's required for your environment. So if you think about, when you're looking for endpoint protection solutions, you're looking for prevention, detection, and response. And these are kind of, what is out there and offered on the marketplace. And FortiEDR does all of these things. However, going beyond these types of things, FortiEDR, in addition to the standard prevention, can do pre and post-infection protection. So even after something is infected, we can still protect it, preventing that breach from going forward. We can then diffuse those threats automatically, stopping ransomware in its tracks and preventing an interruption to the business. For some applications, this has actually been very popular in the operational technology industries. Think of your utilities, your oil and gas, your manufacturing, where they have processes that need to stay online. And with FortiEDR's ability to diffuse attacks in process, we can keep those machines up and running without interruption. And finally, the response capability to automate how to respond to attacks and to go back and restore the endpoint. And it's really creates a self-healing endpoint with all of these capabilities. So all of this, as a result, reduces the attack surface because you're protecting that endpoint, and you're also reducing the burden on the SOC organization as the attack surface is reduced and the automation is increased. They can spend more time on the intelligent thoughts and actions as opposed to the administrative activities that endpoints can consume. In addition to having powerful endpoint protection, our FortiEDR also offers a response service. So if you have been infected, or if you want us to be watching your network, we do offer a FortiEDR service that can monitor 24/7 to see what's going on, and then provide incident handling capabilities with backed by experts on this platform. So that is available if you should want to roll that out. If you don't feel your current SOC NOC teams can handle it, we can help take the load off of that. So we talked a little bit about endpoint. Let's talk about access control. And if you remember, the issue here is with so many different devices potentially being used to access the network, how do you control that when people are coming in over remote links? And the answer to that is really you need a network access control solution. In the Fortinet portfolio, this is our FortiNAC product, and it delivers the three things that you need out of network access control. Is one, visibility, to know what is on your network, including on those VPN links, and then to be able to control what access those devices have, and to keep watching so that if something happens or changes, it can take automated response. As you might have heard, I talked about the security fabric initially being broad, integrated, and automated, and I keep on coming back to automated as an important part of cybersecurity solutions. I talked about it in EDR, and I'll be talking about it again here in FortiNAC. So what does FortiNAC do to give you visibility into your network? Well, first, we create an inventory of live connections for all users and all endpoints of that's in your network. And that inventory of live connections will look at, for example, this company has 3 offices in the Texas region. We'll look at where they're connecting to, what switch, what access point, even what VPN connection they're connecting to. Then we'll look at who they are based on their login credentials and that 2-factor authentication. And we will track what device they are connecting with, whether it's a corporate laptop, a personal laptop, whether it's a desktop connected through a phone, with a lot of voice over IP phones, they'll have the desktop will be connected behind it. So we can track all that and know what they're connected to, and then also when they're connecting. And with that, you can actually piece together a good map of who, where, what, and when is accessing the network. And that gives you visibility, but then that also turns around and enables you to control that. You can actually write policies that define who should be accessing what type of on what type of devices for particular times of day. So think about, if you happen to have offices in California and London, say San Francisco and London, and you've got an office worker who works in San Francisco, you might have a policy that, hey, they're not allowed to access the corporate network in London at 2 a.m. London time. Because, they shouldn't be doing that. They should be connecting into the California office. So you can have policies in place that prevent that. And these, VPN is just another connection here, so we can absolutely maintain that live inventory of connections looking at the VPNs. And the way that works is, as employees or contractors or vendors access your network, they're going to be logging in. And FortiNAC will be identifying that user, then they'll be identifying the device, they'll be profiling it, understanding what it is, and then they'll be doing a risk assessment. We can look at what is the firmware run on that device? Does it have its AV software turned on? Is it updated? And if not, we can take action, which gets to the last one, is assigning network access. So if that doesn't meet policy, we can start up and say, hey, no, you don't get access to the network. We don't care if you're coming in over the VPN. There's something wrong that needs to be addressed first. Maybe they just need to upgrade their firmware. Maybe they need to turn on their AV. You can deny access and still give people the information of what they need to do in order to gain access. But say, hey, they're a guest. We do want them on, but we need to make sure that they have limited guest access. Well, you can do that even through VPN tunnels. You can give them guest access levels. Or maybe you say, hey, you're coming in on a unmanaged device. You don't have our endpoint protection on there, but we know that you are who you are. You are an employee. You do need access to the network. We're going to give you some access, but not full access, because you're based on our policies with the machine you have, we don't want to give you access to the keys to the kingdom. And then, of course, for those who meet all requirements, you can give them unrestricted access. And all that's definable per your policies, and Fortinet will just enforce it. So an example of an organization that has rolled out Fortinet for specifically the ability to control their VPN connections is the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. This is an organization that does a lot of basic research into all kinds of things. I stole this picture off their website because 20 plus years ago when I was in the Navy, this was the type of ship that I served on. So I thought it was kind of cool that Johns Hopkins was supporting the technologies and capabilities of the U.S. military and other militaries and other organizations. But the point being is they do work for military, healthcare, and space organizations. They do have an elevated need for security, and because they do have remote workers and wanted to be able to enable that, they deployed Fortinet a couple of years ago, in fact, in order to have that visibility and control. So we've talked a bit about keeping strong endpoints, and then talking about how do you enforce BYOD policies with everyone coming in remotely from their VPNs. The last thing I want to talk about is how do you keep good visibility and control and security over SaaS-based applications. As you remember from those connectivity diagrams that we had, people can be setting up split tunnels and accessing applications directly, not going through the head office. So then what do you do to maintain security and visibility into what's going on there? And the answer is, rather I should say, there's, cloud-based applications are certainly on the rise. Security as a service, or software as a service, is increasing. And with that, so is the market for cloud access security brokers. So that's that CASB acronym there in the green block. And what a cloud access security broker does is kind of similar to what the network access control device does, but it's really looking at what's happening with that cloud-based application. And analysts are, as you can see from these quotes from Gartner, CASB is going to become an increasingly important part of any SaaS solution and SaaS rollout. Now, the Fortinet's solution for CASB, as you might have guessed, is called FortiCASB, that is how we name our products. And it really gives you the visibility to understand what's going on in those applications. And it gives you, you can look at, approved usage and unapproved usage. And you can also find shadow IT deployments of cloud-based applications. You can then take a look at how are those SaaS-based applications used, and to be able to report back with compliance to show that you are indeed meeting the various requirements. FortiCASB is available on the major systems, so whether you're using Google Drive, Windows, Box, Dropbox, Salesforce, we do tie into all those major applications. To have an effective CASB solution, you do need to be able to operate at scale, and this is something that FortiCASB does offer. You know, working with such large cloud-based solutions, we can support those, and the number, you know, no upper limit on the number of users that you can manage and track using the FortiCASB solution. FortiCASB is a homegrown solution for us. We've built it to integrate with the rest of the security fabric, so you do get all the protections and capabilities and benefits of that. And we are API based. So this is actually a key point of how that's rolled out, and it simplifies the life of the SOC team. And we do, of course, offer this as a good value and good ROI. So let's take a look at how does FortiCASB work? How is it deployed? So as you might, as in normal times, people are on premise, they're connecting to their devices, they're going through the FortiGate and going out to SaaS-based applications. And when people are working remotely, they can be accessing those applications directly from their devices, going over the internet to those SaaS applications. They're not going through FortiCASB. So then you might say, well, how are we providing any protection? How are we providing any security? FortiCASB sits behind those SaaS-based applications and ties directly into them using APIs. And the SOC team interfaces with FortiCASB to then gain insight into what's happening in those SaaS tools. So some key things here: there's no agent that you need to put on the endpoints. You can roll out FortiCASB engaging directly with those with the SaaS applications. You don't have to push something out onto all those devices. So that's a huge benefit in rolling it out, and ongoing maintenance and monitoring. So what are the types of things that this FortiCASB can do? Even though, you know, you say, well, how can it help me if it's just tying into the back end? Well, it's going to be able to analyze and view who's using this application. In this case, I'm using Salesforce.com as an example. So it can look into how Salesforce.com is being used, what are the, who's on there, what data is being uploaded, what's in the data. It can look at the patterns of how things are being accessed, what things are being downloaded. It can look at a lot of different factors. So you look at the information that's putting in there, and then that can trigger compliance violations. And so all this is a way to get visibility into what's happening on those SaaS-based applications. That's, you know, if you think about it, you know, if you didn't have something like this, how would you know what users are doing in the SaaS tools? This gives you that visibility to know when users are doing potentially unwanted things in those SaaS tools, and can create the alarm and to trigger to take a look into potentially suspicious activity. And then once you've identified it, it can then assist in taking those steps to resolve the issue. So as a use case, let's take a look at, say you've got someone who's, again, in Salesforce.com, and FortiCASB identifies, hey, wait, we just saw a credit card info show up on the system. Well, we're not supposed to have credit card information in Salesforce.com, so we say, hey, this could be something wrong. Let's go check things out. Well, first thing you're going to do is take a look, is this malware going on? Is this some threat that's infected the machine? And say, nope, it does not look like there's malware involved here, but this still is a violation of our policy. So let's take a look at that file. How widely available is that file? And then we can remove the file, we can make it anonymous, and then we can look at additional information as to who uploaded it, how did that come, and then take steps to sanitize that. So as we get to the end of this additional security concerns section, let's just recap that as people are working more and more remotely, you need to make sure that they have a strong self-healing endpoint protection solution so you don't have to deal with or can reduce the number of endpoint support cases. Keep in mind that when people are working from home and they have a problem, the standard IT solution is, hey, we need to re-image the device. That could mean a week of lost productivity as the device is shipped back and forth from the home office to the headquarters or to the supporting office, getting re-imaged and shipping back. So that's a lot of productivity lost. So you want to make sure that you have a strong, automated, and self-healing protection solution for all those endpoints that are out at home. Second, you want to make sure that you have and maintain control of the devices that are coming onto the network. Even if they are corporate controlled, you want to make sure that they have the appropriate firmware on board, they have their patching up to date, and you need some way to enforce that automatically. And that's where Fortinet can come in and enforce that BYOD policy, assisting folks to get the right remediation that they might need to fix outstanding policy errors, or if in the case that employees just don't have corporate assets and they need to leverage existing unmanaged assets, you want to let them on to your network, but you need to do so in a safe manner. And that's where Fortinet can control that access so that those unmanaged assets, unmanaged endpoints, can get onto the network, but in a safe manner. Pardon. And then finally, for all the SaaS-based applications, you still need to maintain visibility and control over what's happening in those. And having something like FortiCASB can give you that back-end access to those applications, the insight to see what's happening up there in the cloud, and then to be able to take action against it. You need that now that everyone is working remotely. Some additional resources, if you want more information about what I've talked about, if you go to the Fortinet.com page, you'll see our teleworking, a link to our teleworking solution page where we have all kinds of information. So we got videos, we got solution briefs, white papers, we have technical documents. So if you're in the process or want to look into what it would take to actually deploy these, we do have links to the technical documents that enable all that remote connectivity, all those capabilities. And as I mentioned earlier, if you are short of VPN clients and you want to make sure that people are connecting securely remotely, you can download our free VPN client from www.forticlient.com. So that's not Fortinet.com, but forticlient.com. And that's where you can get your free copy of our VPN solution. So with that, I would like to thank you for joining us as we talked about how to secure the enterprise from home. I do encourage you to go visit the Fortinet exhibitor booth in the exhibit hall where we can answer your questions, and we look forward to hearing from you there. Thank you very much.